Hi, this is Richard C. I'm a math tutor here at Wyzant. I'm answering a question submitted by a student who is obviously taking pre-calculus, and he's got a nice little word problem here for us to solve. Now, the word problem says we should use either the sine or the cosine function, and I just want to start off by reminding you what the sine and cosine functions look like. So the sine function starts at the origin and goes up and then through the origin, through the x-axis and then back up to the x-axis, which is called the midline. And the cosine looks like a big urn or small urn. It starts at the maximum and goes down and below the midline and back up to the maximum again. And this isn't drawn very well because the dip is as big as what happened there? There we go. And then the minimum here you see is just as far below the x-axis as the, yeah, so that's a nicer curve of the cosine. Okay. So now let's look at the data points that were given in the word problem here. So we have high tide is at 6 feet and low tide is at below 6 feet, -6 below sea level. Sea level in this problem would be 0 for feet. And it starts at a high tide and then 7 hours later it's 6 feet below sea level. So sea level is here at the x-axis. So 7 hours later, it's 6 feet below. And then 14 hours later, it doesn't say this precisely, but just from symmetry, you can see from 14 hours later, it would be back to where it started. And so we're going to use the cosine curve here because it fits the data very nicely. Now, this is the general form of the cosine equation. A is the amplitude, B is the period, H is the horizontal shift, K is the vertical shift. We don't have any horizontal or vertical shifts here, but we do have to calculate the A and B. So the amplitude, which is A, is just the absolute value of, well, it's the absolute value of A Yeah, the amplitude is just the absolute value of A. And the period is 2 pi over absolute B. Okay, so now we have to find A and B. You can see now from the amplitude is 6, so that's pretty clear. The amplitude is the distance from the midline to the max, or the midline to the minimum. And now we have period. We can see that our period is 14 because it takes 14 hours to complete a full cycle. So let's solve that for B. So 2 pi equals 14b. So B is going to be pi over 7. And so now we're ready to write our answer. So y equals 6 times the cosine of pi over 7 x. Oh, they want t, so I'll write t. And they want to call h of t. Oh, let's just change that. H of t, the height at time t, and that's just going to be t, where t is the elapsed hours from high tide. And that's it. Very simple. And you can put this into your calculator and you can see the graph and you'll you'll see that it matches the graph that we just sketched out here. Okay, so really not as bad as the student thought it was. Just have to read very carefully and build, put in your critical points and build your curve. And then memorize the general form of the cosine. The general form of the sine looks the same. It just has a sine here instead of a cosine. And memorize what these A, B, H, and K mean. And then you just go and you plug in and get a match. And verify things on the calculator and you'll be all set. Okay, so that's it for this one. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.